Hello guys and welcome to another video. Today we're reading and reviewing the final book of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian. This is a reading vlog in the vaguest sense of the terms because I didn't want to read this book while I was vlogging. I wanted to fully enjoy it this time because it's my favorite book and I wanted to really remember everything that happened for book number 6. I already read it and I marked every single passage that I wanted to talk about. It's a lot, so let's get into it. So of course we start off by being in the car. It's Paul, he's lent it to Percy and he's driving around in a private beach. They never do explain how they end up in a private beach and I'm very, very curious. Is it Paul? Is it Sally's influence? Or are they using Rachel Elizabeth Dare's contacts? We don't know. So there's Percy and Rachel in the car and Rachel just very casually says, and so hypothetically, if these two people liked each other, what would it take to get the stupid guy to kiss the girl, huh? And Percy's just I felt like one of Apollo's sacred cows, slow, dumb, and bright red. I can't pretend I hadn't thought about Rachel. She was so much easier to be around than ... well, than some other girls I knew. I didn't have to work hard or watch what I said or rack my brain trying to figure out what she was thinking. Rachel didn't hide much. She let you know what she felt. I'm not sure what I would have done next, but I was so distracted I didn't notice the huge black form swooping down from the sky until the 4 hooves landed on the hood of the Prius with a whomp whomp crunch. So clearly, Rachel shippers are both very happy and very sad after reading this passage because, oh my god, there's a chance, but also nothing happens, so we're both left feeling dissatisfied. Do you think Percy would have done something? I personally think he wouldn't have, because this guy has zero romantic initiative. As we've seen with Annabeth, who calls him a coward, and she's kind of right in this front. It's not that he's a coward, I think it's more the fact that he, not denying his feelings, but he's not that introspective about his romantic feelings, and obviously the guy has a lot going on whenever things like this are happening, so he's not really thinking about that. Although he is always thinking about how good Annabeth looks, so. I also think this is one of the passages that let us know. I think Percy and Rachel wouldn't have been the worst couple, but this very clearly shows that Percy and Annabeth are a better couple for each other, specifically for Percy, because Rachel doesn't push him, and Annabeth pushes him to be the best version he can be, which reminds me of a quote from one of my favorite couples. In Young Justice, in one episode, one wizard guy tells Wally West, aka Kid Flash, that he has to get his own little Spitfire, who won't let him get away with nothing. And that's something that I always look for in ships. You know, the other person has to hold you accountable, they have to make you grow, they have to make you be better. And that's Perciveth exactly. And of course, before Percy leaves with Beckendorf, who just landed blackjack on the hood of Percy's car, what does Rachel do? Good luck, Rachel kissed me before I could even react. Now get going, Half-Blood, go kill some monsters for me. So, Beckendorf said, I'm guessing you don't want me to mention that little scene to Annabeth. Oh gods, I muttered, don't even think about it. He's not gonna get a chance to. Percy does not even comment on the kiss. If Beckendorf hadn't brought it up, I don't think Percy would have even thought about it in his inner monologue. This guy had his brain melting when Annabeth kissed him. This guy was noticing every single detail in the Athena cabin when Annabeth hugged him. One kiss from Rachel and he's just like, well, I don't want Annabeth to know. This to me proves that he really likes Rachel as a friend. Just a friend, and he's projecting his feelings and insecurities about Annabeth onto her, and the fact that he feels safe with her and he feels normal with her and he feels that this relationship is easy. So he's sinking in on that instead of taking a big step and being a big boy and working on his relationship with Annabeth. He's a slow one, but we love him. I'm starting to think that I'm gonna have to change my ranking of the first 5 Percy Jackson books, so please let me know you guys' ranking down below. Let's discuss and let's see what the most popular book is and what the least popular book is. Random line that I thought was very funny minutes before tragedy struck. Annabeth had told me about this monster crab, something about Hercules crushing it under his foot. That wasn't going to work here. This crab was slightly bigger than my rebooks. Those lines are what make Percy Jackson for me, and I'm really hoping we get an inner monologue because Percy's not gonna say this out loud, and the gems are in his head. I always forget how sad it is when Beckendorf dies. I said spoilers before. It's very sad, and the fact that it's Beckendorf telling Percy to go because he's sacrificing himself, because he knows the boat is gonna explode, it's so sad. And just before that, he saw that there's a spy at camp. I wonder if Beckendorf suspected that it might be Selena, because if she had a bracelet like that, maybe he would have seen it, because, you know, he's her boyfriend. And Percy is so sad. This is one of the things that I think they could do really, really well in the show. If they get to seasons like 4 and 5 and they start introducing Beckendorf as a more important character, then I want to see Beckendorf being very good friends with Percy and being like the new Luke. Because he's like an older male figure in Percy's life while still being like younger than Paul and Poseidon. So he's an older guy that Percy can look up to, and specifically his relationship with Selena. He's like something that Percy can strive for in his future. And also, I just want Percy to have like an older brother, someone to take care of him, to have fun with. Percy doesn't have a lot of close friends at camp, and I think that maybe the show could change that and show that, yes, Percy loves hanging around Annabeth and Grover at camp, but sometimes he's not there with them. Sometimes he's with Charlie or with whoever else. He also spends a lot of time with the Stoll brothers, so I want to see those relationships, specifically Charlie. And then I think that would make his death in the 5th season all the more impactful. I don't want him to die, but he has to. I will cry when that scene comes out. All throughout this marathon and in both of my latest reading blogs, I've been like, oh, Percy has this if I die attitude. But here it's confirmed. Word for word, Percy says, I don't need time. If I die, I die. I can't worry about that, right? And Annabeth obviously can't meet his eyes. She's like shaking. All those subtle moments. Annabeth doesn't have to say anything. She's just there, feeling for Percy. I love little moments between ships. They keep talking and Karen's like, Percy, we didn't want to tell you until you returned to camp. You needed a break with your mortal friends. Annabeth blushed. It dawned on me that she knew I'd been hanging out with Rachel, and I felt guilty. Then I was angry that I felt guilty. I was allowed to have friends outside camp, right? It wasn't like, ... And then he completely changes the subject so quickly because he hates talking about maybe their feelings for Rachel or like Rachel at all with Annabeth in the same room. Which tells us a lot, guy. Like, do some introspection and wonder why you don't want to talk about that with Annabeth. Maybe it's because you actually like her. Maybe just throwing that out there. I love the fact that even though Annabeth and Percy are both idiots for like different reasons, Annabeth, because of her excessive pride, she can never be the one to just be like, Percy, I like you, do something. And she's always too proud to actually tell him how she feels. But Percy's so stupid that he can't even understand his own feelings. But despite of that, and despite just having like an awkward conversation where they haven't talked actually in a while, they're both like, okay, we have things to do. Let's just do both things together because neither of us want to do either thing. So like, that's like couple goals, man. But Annabeth ignored me while she scribbled out her inspection roll, giving both cabins a 1 out of 5. I found myself staring at her, which was stupid since I'd seen her a million times. She and I were about the same height this summer, which was a relief. Still, she seemed so much more mature. It was kind of intimidating. I mean, sure, she'd always been cute, but she was starting to be seriously very foul. If we don't get Percy staring at Annabeth every single second that he can possibly stare at Annabeth in the show, I am suing Disney+. Mark me. Also, the fact that they're the same height, and I feel like most fan artists like forget this fact or just ignore it, but book 3, Annabeth is taller, and I guess they just like grew up little by little, and now they're finally the same height. Percy's like the tallest guy I've ever seen in most fan art. But I think he gets like his growth sprout after this because his body can finally like relax a little bit, at least until December. But who doesn't like Percy just admiring Annabeth every second he can? I guess Rachel doesn't. So they're inspecting the Athena cabin and Malcolm is there, suppressing a smile and grinning at Percy like, oh my god, last time I caught you guys here, you were hugging illegally. We'll wait outside while you finish inspection. The Athena campers filed at the door while Annabeth cleaned up her bunk. I shuffled uneasily and pretended to go through some more reports. technically even on inspection. It was against camp rules for two campers to be, like, alone in a cabin. That rule had come up a lot while Selena and Beckendorf started dating. And then obviously this brings up the question, are gods related? So aren't their offspring related? So they're like, no, it's not a problem. Just required and justifying there's like no incest in the show. This isn't the Shadowhunters. Anyway, for some reason, I was thinking about all this as I watched Annabeth straighten up. For some reason, maybe the fact that, oh, I want to date her. And then Annabeth, because she's the best, she's like, you know, this whole thing about Beckendorf and Selena, it kind of makes you think about what's important, about losing people who are important. I nodded. My brain started seizing on little random details. Again, like when he hugged her. Yeah, I stammered. Like, is everything cool with your family? Okay, really stupid question, but hey, I was nervous. Annabeth looked disappointed, but nodded. Annabeth is always giving Percy, like, the perfect opportunity to say something. She never actually comes out and straight up says it, but she gives him every opportunity. And let's not forget that Annabeth was the first one to actually kiss Percy. So she took that step, and now she's just waiting for Percy to, like, take the last step and come to her, but he just like misses every single chance that she gives him in a silver platter. And then of course we get a letter addressed to Grover, you know from who? Gleason Hedge Protector. And this makes me wonder, obviously I think in this book it's so clear that they wanted to do a Heroes of Olympus. I don't know when the idea came up though, because I don't see any other evidence besides the one that we were presented with in this book. I think after the fourth book, while Rick was preparing to write this one, they were like, okay, this is going really well. We want to keep doing this, but maybe do it a little bit different. And then they were like, okay, so we're going to plan some ideas here. So if then this goes perfectly, we're going to do the other book because it's not like too obvious, but the seed is definitely here. And we'll talk more about the foreshadowing later because there's a lot of it. Okay, so Annabeth and Percy go up to get the prophecy and they're laughing, remembering all times. Annabeth gives him a grudging smile and Grover causing a panic. We locked eyes. I thought of a different time last summer under Mount St. Helens when Annabeth thought I was going to die and she kissed me. She cleared her throat and looked away. Prophecy? Right, I put down the scimitar. Prophecy. So obviously there was like a vibe there. I want to see that look that they share. And Annabeth is like, what is happening, dude? Like, keep on track. There are other moments for this. So all the head counselors from Camp Half-Blood meet at the big house to discuss the prophecy. And they're talking, sharing opinions and theories about what might be happening. And everyone is looking at Percy. And Percy glances at Annabeth. I could tell we were thinking the same thing. And I love that about them. Just like sharing a look, they know what the other is thinking. And we've seen this before. So a little bit after that, Percy and Annabeth are arguing once again, because who would they be without that? They're arguing about Luke and about Rachel and how Rachel could know things about Luke. I knew I shouldn't have shown you the prophecy. All I did was scare you. You run away from things when you're scared. I stared at her, completely stunned. Me? Run away? Obviously, Percy's thinking about all the freaking monsters because he's not one to run away from a fight. And she gets right in his face. Yes, you're a coward, Percy Jackson. Full name? Damn. We were nose to nose. Her eyes were red, and I suddenly realized when she called me a coward, maybe she wasn't talking about the prophecy. If you don't like our chances, she said, maybe you should go on vacation with Rachel. Annabeth, if you don't like our company, that's not fair. She pushed past me and stormed towards the strawberry fields. She hit the tetherball that she passed and sent it spinning angrily at the pole. She has given him every single chance. She has sent him the messages. She's just waiting for him to get them. This makes me really sad. Poor Annabeth. Obviously, the girl could stand to be like a little bit more straightforward. She could understand the special circumstances that we're all in, but she is a 16-year-old girl, so I understand what she's going through. Now that I've gone through that personally. Then we get what I think is a second foreshadowing to what's going to happen later on. So Percy's in the woods hanging out with Mrs. O'Leary, like taking her out for a pee, and he finds Nico there. And he's like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm following a lead on, my family, which I think might be referring to Hazel Levesque. Because it talks about him being in San Francisco where we know what is located. That's right, Camp Jupiter. Later on, we find out that the lead that he had was a memory of his mom and the day that she died, and their memories got wiped out. But I think it can also be interpreted as a hint towards Hazel. I don't know why this shocked me so much, but I don't remember it from other rereads. Obviously it was there, I just don't remember it being there. But Percy talks about Paul and Sally, and he calls them his parents after he's known Paul for a year and a half. And that's very interesting to me, because you would think that Percy, loving his mom so much, might be like overprotective of her, but he's always been so happy about Paul being in the picture because he loves seeing his mom happy. And this just goes to show that Percy is like best son. He's just the best kid out there. He says he's not like a good kid, but he really is. A good kid, a good son. So having seen everything, and after stalking a little bit of Luke and seeing him being Kronos, Percy finally decides to go along with Nico's crazy plan in order to save Olympus. So they go to New York Central Park, and Percy says, so this is the door of Orpheus, which is exactly how Nico and Will travel to the underworld in The Sun and the Star. We need music. I was pretty sure if I tried to sing, all I would cause was an avalanche. And I'm here thinking, like in my latest vlog, if they really used a line from book number 5 in the Lightning Thief musical, did they really do the research that well that they incorporated Percy saying, if I try to sing, it'll probably cause an avalanche into the campfire song? Because if so, my mind is blown. Honestly, it could be like a throwaway line, because if talking about singing, then talking about causing an avalanche isn't that much of a leap. It could just be like a random coincidence. I'm going to choose to say that it's not, and it makes me so happy. Nico is such a sweetheart, even Hades knows it. The boy is as honest as he is dense. That could also be talking about Percy. They have quite a lot in common, and I'm just gonna say it here. Nico is not the badass edgelord a lot of people think he is. He's honestly like best boy. He is not exactly like a cinnamon roll, but he's trying to help Percy all throughout this book. And even in the other one, he was a soft boy. He didn't want to harm things. He just wanted his older sister back. So after a lot of fighting, Nico actually comes back and saves Percy from the prison, even though Percy wasn't too happy to be awoken by Nico at that point. So they get to the shore of the river Styx. They talk to Achilles, who is actually kind of cool in that scene, much cooler than Hercules. Percy says, okay, I'm gonna dive right in. Maybe Hades will get his wish and you'll be the child of the prophecy after all. He didn't look pleased about that, but I didn't care. Percy is so freaking done at this point. And then he has to pick a spot in his body that's going to keep him tethered to his mortality. No place was perfect, but it seemed right to me, and a lot more dignified than like my armpit or something, which I think is then foreshadowing to where Luke chose, because if I'm not mistaken, he chose somewhere like under his arm, in a piece behind his armor where it would be hard to hit. So do we know Luke's fatal spot before we even know it? And then we get probably one of the most beautiful scenes ever for me. It really touches my heart, and I can't wait to see this in the show. So Percy's about to dissolve. He is about to lose all of his humanity, forget himself, and just become one with the river Styx. But before that happens, the chord, a familiar voice said, "Remember your lifeline, dummy. Hold on, seaweed brain." It was Annabeth's voice, much clearer now. "You're not getting away from me that easily. You're not getting away from me, never again." Oh my god, wake up Athena. Okay. The chord strengthened. I could see Annabeth now, standing barefoot above me on the Canoe Lake pier. I'd fallen out of my canoe. That was it. She was reaching out her hand to haul me up, and she was trying not to laugh. Her hair was tucked in her Yankees cap, which was strange because that should have made her invisible. I just noticed. Is this like foreshadowing to her cap not working when Athena is mad at her in Mark of Athena? "You're an idiot sometimes," she smiled. "Come on, take my hand." Memories came flooding back to me. My name was Percy Jackson. I reached up and took Annabeth's hand. Suddenly, I burst out of the river. I looked around for Annabeth, though I knew she wasn't there. It had seemed so real. She's his lifeline. She's what keeps him mortal and human. And this boy, I think he knows now. If it wasn't clear to him before, at this moment, he's like, well, I can't hide anymore. And from here on out, we don't see him hiding or running away from Annabeth any longer. Because at the end of the day, being with Rachel might be a little bit easier, but it's also ignoring 90% of his life. Being with Annabeth just makes his life fuller, more worth fighting for. Percy massacres like 1,000 monsters after this, half of Hades' army and almost Hades himself. And after that, he dismisses Nico. "You mean you don't trust me anymore?" he said miserably. I didn't answer. I didn't know what I meant. I was too stunned by what I had just done in battle to think clearly. "Just go back to your father. Work on him. You're the only person who might be able to get to him." That's a depressing thought. Poor Nico. He just wanted to help. So after that, Percy goes back to New York, to the surface, and he calls all the campers. He's like, "Dudes, well, you need to get to Camp Half-Blood right about now." Annabeth came up to me. She was dressed in black camouflage with her Celestian bronze knife strapped to her arm and her laptop bag slung over her shoulder, ready for stabbing or surfing the internet, whichever came first. She frowned. "What is it?" "What's what?" I asked. "You're looking at me funny." I realized I was thinking about the strange vision of Annabeth pulling me out of the Styx River. "It's, nothing." I turned to the rest of the group. "Thanks, everybody." Clearly, that moment, that vision he had of her changed everything, and he finally understands what he feels. And Annabeth looks him up and down without knowing anything, and she's like, "You look different. Where exactly did you go?" And then Percy's like, "I am going to ignore that." After that, we get to Olympus where we meet Hermes, who's like kind of reluctant to send them the message. And then Annabeth looks up at the god, and she was doing her big pleading gray eyes thing, which makes me think if Percy has been in the other end of that like big pleading gray eye thing, because he's never talked about it before, but he clearly knows her mind tricks. And then Hermes gives them the message from Athena, and he's like, "Last thing, she said to tell Percy, remember the rivers, and something about staying away from her daughter." I'm not sure whose face was redder, Annabeth's or mine. And then Annabeth almost goes crazy and starts a fight with Hermes. And then once again, we have Percy not knowing how to comfort Annabeth. I'm like, "Just go hug her." Annabeth sat on the floor of her mother's throne and cried. I wanted to comfort her, but I wasn't sure how. "It's easy. Just go over there and give her a hug." That's why Percy and Annabeth dating was one of the best things that happened, because Percy finally knows to go there and give her a hug once they're dating. So after that, we find out that every single mortal in Manhattan is asleep. We go down and we see that everyone on the street has fallen asleep. The cars are like in the middle of the sidewalk. Everyone is sleeping. And then Selena says, "This is a huge spell. The bigger the spell, the easier it is to resist. If you want to sleep, blah, 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 blah." Clearly knowing more than she should about how this spell works, and being the first clue that we get that Selena is the spy. So then the demigods have to divide themselves to each cover one portion of Manhattan, and Percy steps up to the role of leader, and he kind of messes up because he's like, Clarice, and obviously Clarice isn't there because of this whole flying chariot debacle, and Annabeth steps in and saves him from an embarrassing silence. And then she says, "I'll go with Percy, then we'll join you, or we'll go wherever we're needed." Somebody in the back of the group, a complete trooper and my favorite character, says, "No detours, you two." There were some giggles, but I decided to let it pass. What a great character. We never find out who it is, but I like to think that it's the spirit of all us shippers. The vibes of Camp Half-Blood campers are immaculate. You'll never find campers like this in Camp Jupiter. So obviously Percy remembers the rivers after that, and he goes to where the Hudson and East rivers come together in the bay, and he tells Annabeth, "Wait here, Percy, you shouldn't go alone." "Well, unless you can breathe underwater," she sighed. "You are so annoying sometimes. Like when I'm right, trust me, I'll be fine. I've got the curse of Achilles now. I'll be invincible and stuff. Just be careful. I don't want anything to happen to you. I mean, because we need you for the battle." "Of course, Annabeth, of course that's what you mean." I grinned, back in a flash. He could have said a kiss for good luck, but he was saving it for like a better moment, and he used it in the best moment imaginable. This is Percy and Annabeth bantering without any heat behind their words, and that's what I want. Annabeth and Percy have woken up the first statue, which then obviously goes on to wake up every single other statue, and then they meet up with the Athena cabin. And he's like, "Oh, how do you plan on doing that to drive the enemy back to Brooklyn?" So Percy's like, "With my freaking sword," and Annabeth is like, "Percy, let me come with you. Too dangerous. Besides, I need you to help Michael coordinate the defensive line. If anybody can do all that, you can." And Michael snorted, "Thanks a lot." I kept my eyes on Annabeth. She nodded reluctantly. "All right, get moving." Before I could lose my courage, I said, "Don't I get a kiss for good luck? It's kind of a tradition, right?" I figured she would punch me. Instead, she drew her knife and stared at the army marching towards us. "Come back alive, seaweed brain. Then we'll see." I figured it was the best offer I could get, so I stepped out from behind the school bus. This guy finally gets his courage and finally understand that he's head over heels in love for his best friend Annabeth while in the river Styx. And then the first chance he gets to make like a coy comment about her kissing him for good luck, he takes it. I think at this point they both know it's bound to happen if they both survive it. So the tension is just exquisite. So at the end of that first night, we sit down with Prometheus, Talia, and Grover are there, and we're bargaining. And then Prometheus says, "Your courage does you credit." Talia grace. Talia stiffened. "That's my mother's surname. I don't use it." I could tell he'd gotten under her skin. I'd never even heard Talia's last name before. This is clearly setting up Jason being Talia's brother, because for 5 books, we've known about Talia since book 1. She was best friends with Annabeth and Luke and Grover, so we've known about her existence since day 1. We could have been told her surname, but we weren't until this book, which then sets up the Lost Hero. And then what do we get in the Lost Hero? Jason Grace. I don't know if I put the dots together while I read it the first time, but I should have. This is clearly not a throwaway line. Do I love the fact that Percy says Greeks let's fight stuff in Blood of Olympus? Yes, I love that fact. I love that for him. But also, I've read Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian. I know what Percy is like when heading into a battle that could make or break the whole world. And Percy is like, "Then let's do it. Good hunting, everybody." I know that's not in the heat of the battle. I just had to say, it's a bit out of character for Percy to say Greeks let's fight stuff when he's led an actual war before, and he always has some words to say that don't sound quite as dumb. So another day, another Titan. Now we have the Titan of Light, Hyperion. Hyperion says, "Enough games. We fight on land." After obviously Percy manages to get him to fight over the lake. I was about to make some clever comment like, "No," when the Titan yelled. That single line there has always made me laugh so hard. Like, I was about to make a very funny comment like, "No, just no." I don't know why that always gets me, but it really does. And that is why we need Percy narration in the show. I will always campaign for that. I know it might sound like bad, lazy writing to have someone narrate a show because, obviously, show, don't tell. But I want to be told this stuff. I want to be told Percy's inner monologue. I feel like I've earned it. After the fight, Annabeth opens up about the dagger and how it came to be with her and Luke and Talia. And she's like, "I ran away when I was 7. Then with Luke and Talia, I thought I'd found a family, but it fell apart almost immediately. What I'm saying, I hate it when people let me down, when things are temporary. I think that's why I want to be an architect, to build something permanent. A monument to last 1,000 years. She held my eyes. I guess it sounds like my fatal flaw again. That explains why Annabeth feels the way she feels about Rachel, because Annabeth felt like she was building something permanent with Percy, and when it didn't feel so permanent, then the whole world crumbled around her. So after all that fighting and Percy creating a literal personal hurricane and storm around him, we get to the big fight. At the bridge against the Minotaur, gone in 5 seconds. Percy is at the top of his game. And then we see Kronos starting to cross the bridge. And Percy and Annabeth are fighting together back to back like they've never fought before. And they're almost to the middle of the bridge when Percy feels a chill down his spine. Like that old saying about someone walking on your grave. Behind me, Annabeth cried out in pain. Annabeth, I turned in time to see her fall, clutching her arm. A demigod with a bloody knife stood over her. In a flash, I understood what had happened. He'd been trying to stab me. Judging from the position of his blade, he would have taken me, maybe by sheer luck, in the small of my back, my only weak point. Annabeth had intercepted the knife with her own body. But why? She didn't know about my weak spot. No one did. I locked eyes with the enemy demigod, Ethan Nakamura. I slammed him in the face with my sword hilt so hard I dented his helmet. Get back, I slashed the air in a wide arc, driving the rest of the demigods away from Annabeth. No one touches her. Interesting, Kronos said. And that is exactly how I reacted as well the first time I read this. I was like, well, very interesting indeed. I was dying. Blackjack soars down and grabs Annabeth like from the back of her armor like a baby kitten and swoops her away, and she's safe. Get back, nobody touches her. Rick Riordan started that trope, and he has ruined us, every girl reader, for the rest of our lives. Like, romance is dead because Percy Jackson doesn't exist, so our expectations are way too high because of him. So of course, after the bridge, and after Percy slashes the bridge in half and is shocked almost to tears by the knowledge that maybe he killed Michael Yu by slashing that bridge. Michael Yu is one of those characters that we're going to get to know more of in the 5th season, if we ever got it. That's going to make his death all the more devastating, because just from the couple of pages and comments we get about him, it's the kind of character that I like. So I'm gonna be devastated. I'm gonna be so sad. But after that, Percy gets to the hotel because it's Annabeth. He grabs Will Solis and they're like, okay, we're gonna get to Annabeth ASAP. Jake Mason tries to give Percy a report and he's like, later, where's Annabeth? The terrorist, she's alive, man, but he pushes past him. Annabeth lay on a lounge chair. Her face was pale and beaded with sweat. Even though she was covered in blankets, she shivered. Selena Beauregard was wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. I've always said that Selena died a hero, and I believed that she did, but I'm very confused as to her motives to keep being a spy, and obviously she loves Camp Half-Blood. So why is she still spying on them? That's what I don't understand, especially after Charlie. I cannot believe that she's still giving Luke information. I want that to either be changed or the motive to be made more clear in the show. Annabeth, I choked up. She'd taken that knife from me. How could I have let that happen? Poison on the dagger, she mumbled. Pretty stupid of me, huh? Will Solis exhaled with relief. It's not so bad, Annabeth. Will cleaned out the wound with the godly drink while I held Annabeth's hand. Just things like that. Ugh. Ow, she said. Ow, ow. She gripped my fingers so tight they turned purple, but she stayed still. Selena muttered words of encouragement. Knowing what I know, I can't be happy about her being there because it's all her fault. It's not all her fault, but it's her fault. You know, she could have done something, like maybe kept her mouth shut, or maybe opened her mouth to tell someone the truth, you know? We could have fixed it, we could have avoided a lot of things, but we didn't, Selena, so maybe think about that a bit. And then Selena's very sad, and Percy comforts her. So she gets the idea to go back and get Clarice, the one thing that she does right in this book. And then Percy's like, all right, I can't think of anyone better to go and try to change Clarice's mind. Selena throws her arms around Percy. Then she pushes back awkwardly, glancing at Annabeth. Sorry. Thank you, Percy. I won't let you down. So they're losing the fight against the dragon when out of nowhere, the Ares cabin shows up, led by none other than yeah, it's not Clarice, it's Selena, who then dies. Like, half of her face is melted off. And of course, Selena is beautiful, being a child of Aphrodite, and that is going to be quite a shocking visual. It's quite a poetic death meant to parallel Patroclus and Achilles. But of course, she's Patroclus, and Achilles is Clarice, who then shows up, murders the dragon and any other monster within like 100-foot radius. It's a very sad death, because Clarice is very sad and she cries, and nobody expects Clarice to ever cry, especially for a friend. And then we see Percy and Annabeth being completely shaken to the core by this death, and also by this reveal that she was the traitor. She was the spy. Percy has been saying for the whole book that he's gonna freaking murder the spy on sight when he sees them, when he finds out who they are. But of course, it's Selena. Selena has always been a comforting presence to everyone at camp. So the fact that Selena, Charlie's girlfriend, was the one who was feeding information to Luke is a very low blow, but it's like none of them have time to process it, and none of them are willing to see her as anything other than a hero at death. I agree that she did quite a heroic thing at death. I want to know more about her motives, because she did cause a lot of deaths that could have been prevented if she had just not been a spy. But yes, this is one of the scenes that I'm most looking forward to watching on screen. The fight is closing in and we get Nico D'Angelo marching down Fifth Avenue or whatever with his army, but things are still not looking great, however badass that moment is. So our trio of 3 heroes goes out the elevator to Olympus for one last time. And Percy is remembering the first time he went up to Olympus when he was 12. Annabeth and Grover hadn't been with me then. I was glad they were there with me now. I had a feeling it might be our last adventure together. As the 3 of you, yes, until the 6th book that comes out this week. Percy, Annabeth said quietly, you were right about Luke. You tried to tell me. Luke is no good. I didn't believe you until I heard how he'd used Selena. Now I know. I hope you're happy. That doesn't make me happy. She put her head against the elevator wall and wouldn't look at me. Grover cradled his laurel sapling in his hands. Well, sure good to be together again. Arguing, almost dying, abject terror. Oh look, it's our 4. I haven't had an appreciation for Grover ever. I've always been meh towards him. He was there. Percabeth was right next to it, so obviously I looked at the shiny Percabeth. But this read-through, this last marathon I've done of the series, I have been loving him so much. He is just such a great character. I underestimated his comedic value and the heart that it brought to a trio. He brings so much lightheartedness, and I love him, and I loved him so much in the trailer, so I can't wait to watch more of him. So of course we get to the top floor to find Rachel in the throne room with Hestia, and they get to talking. Percy, when I came here, I thought I was coming for you, but I wasn't. You and me? She shook her head. Wait, now I'm a distraction? Is this because I'm not the hero or whatever? I'm not sure I can put it into words. I was drawn to you because you opened the door to all of this. I needed to understand my true sight. But you and me, that wasn't part of it. Our fates aren't intertwined. I think you've always known that deep down. And Percy has deep down. He was just looking for an excuse to an easy way out. Maybe I wasn't the brightest guy in the world when it came to girls, but I was pretty sure Rachel had just dumped me, which was lame considering we'd never been together. So what? Thanks for bringing me to Olympus? See ya? Is that what you're saying? I would also feel annoyed because who are you to break up with Percy? But obviously I'm very happy that she did. And that's what I've always been telling you guys. She didn't like him in that way. She was drawn to him because she was drawn to the Greek mythology of it all. And he was drawn to her because he wanted the mundaneness of it all. So they were both looking for an escape out of their hard worlds, and they found it in each other, but they had to grow, and to grow you can't escape. You need to face it head on, which for Rachel is to become an oracle, and for Percy is to admit that he has freaking feelings for Annabeth. So after that, we have our iconic fight with Kronos, and it's so well written. Rick Riordan really does action sequence very well. And after that, we get Percy's choice. So talking about Kronos, he stepped toward Annabeth, but I put myself between him and her. Don't touch her, I said. Anger rippled across his face. Jackson. And then Annabeth talks about hero, cursed blade, and Percy suddenly realizes that yes, the prophecy was about him, but that line really wasn't. A hero's soul, cursed blade shall weep. So Luke/Kronos take the knife and he exposes a small bit of his skin just under his left arm. That has to be his armpit. And then Annabeth says, you were a hero at the end, Luke. You'll go to Elysium. Think rebirth. Try 3 times. Isles of the Blessed. You always push yourself too hard. Did you love me? Annabeth whipped her tears away. There was a time I thought she looked at me like she was drinking in the fact that I was still here. And I realized I was doing the same thing. The world was collapsing, and the only thing that really mattered to me was that she was alive. If you're a fan of Mark of Athena or Percabeth in general, you know the line. The whole world could have been ending, and the only thing that mattered was that she was there, or that she was okay. Like when they kiss after everything at the beginning of Mark of Athena. You were like a brother to me, Luke, she said softly, but I didn't love you. He nodded as if he'd expected it. And then Percy announces, we need a shroud. I announced, my voice cracking, a shroud for the son of Hermes. And then the war is over. It's funny how both Luke and Percy used a memory or a thought of Annabeth as their cord their emotional tether to the mortal world when they took a dive in the river Styx. It's not funny, haha, it's funny interesting. Next to me, Annabeth's knees buckled. I caught her, but she cried out in pain and I realized I grabbed her broken arm. Oh gods, I said. Annabeth, I'm sorry. It's alright, she said as she passed out in my arms. How can you not like Annabeth? Annabeth has been dying this whole book, and in her last breath, she's like, I'm okay. Don't worry, Percy. I'm gonna say something to cheer you up or to make you feel better. This is why I love Annabeth. She has so many sides to her. She's not just like a grumpy, proud kid who's jealous at times. No, she's so much more. You just have to give her a chance, man. So of course, our trio saved the whole world. So they're granted presents, kind of, gifts by the gods. Annabeth gets to be the architect of Olympus because it has to be rebuilt. And Percy gets one wish, and of course they assume the gift is going to be immortality, not dying, becoming a god for all eternity. Athena approves while looking directly at Annabeth. Percy glances back. Annabeth was trying not to meet my eyes. Her face was pale. I flashed back to 2 years ago, when I thought she was going to take the pledge to Artemis and become a hunter. I'd been on the edge of a panic attack, thinking that I'd lose her. Now, she looked pretty much the same way. How could I refuse that? Immortality? Power? Then I looked at Annabeth again. I thought about my friends at camp, Charles Beckendorf, Michael Yu, Selena Burgard, so many others who were dead now. I thought about Ethan Nakamura and look, and I knew what to do. No, I said. He said no to immortality. Get a guy who will say no to immortality for you. So they have the burning shroud ceremony, and then they go to the big hall, and they have dinner, and then everyone is off playing, and Percy stays at his table looking at the beach dramatically. And who shows up? None other than the girly Annabeth herself. Hey, Annabeth slid next to me on the bench. Happy birthday. She was holding a huge misshapen cake with blue icing. I stared at her. What? It's August 18th, she said. Your birthday, right? I was stunned. It hadn't even occurred to me, but she was right. I had turned 16 this morning. The same morning I'd made the choice to give Luke the knife. The prophecy had come true right on schedule, and I hadn't even thought about the fact that it was my birthday. Make a wish, she said. Did you bake this yourself? Tyson helped. That explains why it looks like a chocolate brick with extra blue cement. Annabeth laughed. I thought for a second, then blew out the candle. We cut it in half and shared, eating with our fingers. Annabeth sat next to me, and we watched the ocean. Crickets and monsters were making noise in the woods, but otherwise, it was silent. You saved the world, she said. We saved the world. And Rachel is the new oracle, which means she won't be dating anybody. You don't seem disappointed, I noticed. She shrugged. Oh, I don't care. Uh-huh. She raised an eyebrow. You got something to say to me, seaweed brain? You'd probably kick my butt. You know I'd kick your butt. I brushed the cake off my hands. When I was in the river Styx, turning and vulnerable, Nico said I had to concentrate on one thing that kept me anchored to the world, that made me want to stay mortal. Annabeth kept her eyes on the horizon. Yeah? Then on Olympus, I said, when they wanted to make me a god and stuff, I kept thinking, oh, you so wanted to. Well, maybe a little, but I didn't, because I thought I didn't want things to stay the same for eternity, because things could always get better. When I first read the scene, I learned this whole scene by heart in Spanish, because that's in the language I read it in. I knew this by heart. I almost know it by heart now. But that line, I didn't want things to stay the same for eternity, because things could always get better. That is something that I always carry with me in life, and maybe this is me getting too deep about a middle grade novel, but at the same time, no. Because Rick has taught us a lot of life lessons. Me specifically, I have grown with his books, and thanks to his books, I have matured. That line has always made me feel optimistic. Sometimes you feel like you can't grow, you can't evolve, things are never going to change. You're like in a deep black hole and you're never going to come out of them. But things don't stay the same forever. Things can always get better, and things will get better. And that always has made me feel like certain kind of happiness, because yes, things might be shit now, but they're not going to be shit forever. So you just have to wait and look for the light at the end of the tunnel, because things always get better. And that has gotten me through a lot. My throat felt really dry. Anyone in particular? Annabeth asked, her voice soft. I looked over and saw that she was trying not to smile. You're laughing at me, I complained. I am not. You are so not making this easy. Then she laughed for real, and she put her hands around my neck. I'm never, ever going to make things easy for you, Seawood Brain. Get used to it. When she kissed me, I had the feeling my brain was melting right through my body. It could have stayed that way forever, except a voice behind us growled, well, it's about time! And of course, Clarice always injects herself into the perfect Percybeth moments, and it wouldn't be a perfect Percybeth moment without all Camp Half-Blood being there to witness it. As seen before in the hug they shared after Percy was presumed dead for 2 weeks in the Battle of the Labyrinth. So Percy's like, oh, come on, is there no privacy? The lovebirds need to cool off. The canoe lake. With a huge cheer, they carried us down the hill, but they kept us close enough to hold hands. Annabeth was laughing, and I couldn't help laughing too, even though my face was completely red. We held hands right up to the moment they dumped us in the water. Afterwards, I had the last laugh. I made an air bubble at the bottom of the lake. Our friends kept waiting for us to come up, but hey, when you're the son of Poseidon, you don't have to hurry. And it was pretty much the best underwater kiss of all time. Nobody's doing it like they are. I wonder if there's anyone that ships the trio, like, in a polyamorous relationship, because there's, like, really nothing you can do between Annabeth and Grover. I wonder if there's fan fiction about that. I hope not, because he did bring Annabeth to camp when she was 7, so it's kind of as weird as her and Luke. Annabeth, thank goodness, would be staying in New York. She'd gotten permission from her parents to attend a boarding school in the city so she could be close to Olympus and oversee the rebuilding efforts. And close to me, I asked, well, someone's got a big sense of his own importance. But she laced her fingers through mine. I remembered what she told me in New York about building something permanent, and I thought, just maybe, we were off to a good start. There have been some leaks of Chalice of the Gods, and I, as a good fan who wants to enjoy it correctly, have avoided them like the plague. And I think there was a comment about Percy and them being forever, and I can't wait to read it. I'm so excited to see Percy and Grover and Annabeth all together again. God, and from Percy's point of view. You've been thinking about Rachel's prophecy? I asked Annabeth. She frowned. How did you know? Because I know you. She bumped me with her shoulder. Okay, so I have. It was hard to feel upset on a nice day with her next to me, knowing that I wasn't really saying goodbye. We had lots of time. Rick Riordan for not giving them lots of time, god damn it. Race you to the road? I said. You are so going to lose. She took off down Half-Blood Hill and I sprinted after her. For once, I didn't look back. And it's the first book with acknowledgements. And then you're like, oh great, fun. Everything ends well. So those were the best moments and best lines of Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian. Honestly, this has to be my favorite book in the series because it's just so good. Have you ever found a last book to a series that's so well written? Definitely cannot be found in any of the other Rick Riordan series. I'm sorry, this guy is just not that good with final books. We've seen it time and time again. Magnus Chase, Blood of Olympus, and that's all I can think of right now because I think I remember liking Tower of Nero more than the other books. But anyhow, he doesn't have the best precedent, but this just shows that he has it in him. And this, just everything is so well set up in the other books and so well executed here in the last book. I love a battle that has been built up for 4 books and takes up one whole book. That's right, I'm looking at you, Blood of Olympus, where the battle lasts like 50 pages at most. But this one lasts the whole freaking book. And it's just so good. We have so many great Percybeth moments. Most characters are 3-dimensional. We see their growth. I love their relationships. It's just so good. We also see Luke's backstory, which is extremely necessary to a good villain. Luke is the main villain. Kronos is the main big guy, but Luke is really like the one we're attached to because he's the human one. Gaia is nothing. I'm sorry, I'm not a Heroes of Olympus hater, but when this exists, this Heroes of Olympus feels so pale in comparison. It's like this is Technicolor and Heroes of Olympus is black and white, and it's also like no sound. So I hope you like this video. I hope you've read the books along with me, and if you've read Chalice of the Gods, I don't know if I have read it yet by the time I'm posting this video, so please leave no spoilers down below. Please let me know your favorite moments of The Last Olympian down below, and also let me know your ranking for this book series, because mine, I think, has changed. So I might have to do an updated ranking of every single Rick Riordan book. Please leave a like if you haven't already. Click that subscribe button so you subscribe to my channel and you don't miss any of my upcoming videos, like also clicking that bell icon. Upcoming videos like my discussion of Chalice of the Gods, Percy Jackson, number 6. And I guess I'll see you guys next time, next Friday, to discuss that book. Bye! Hey, happy birthday. What? August 18th. Your birthday, right? Make a wish. Did you bake this yourself? Tyson helped. That explains why it looks like a chocolate brick with extra blue cement. You saved the world. We saved the world. And Rachel is the new Oracle, which means she won't be dating anybody. You don't sound disappointed. Oh, I don't care. You got something to say to me, Seaweed Brain? You would probably kick my butt. You know I'd kick your butt. When I was at the River Styx, turning invulnerable, yeah? Nico said I had to concentrate on one thing that kept me anchored to the world. That made me want to stay mortal. Then, up on Olympus, when they wanted to make me a god and stuff, I kept thinking, oh, you so wanted to. Well, maybe a little, but I didn't, because I thought I didn't want things to stay the same for all of eternity, because things could always get better. And I was thinking, anyone in particular? You're laughing at me. I am not. You are so not making this easy. I am never, ever going to make things easy for you, Seaweed Brain. Get used to it. Well, it's about time.